10 years ago, a single night changed the course of 2 lives forever. Now, under pouring rain in the shadow of a city that never sleeps, fate delivers its final twist. A billionaire steps out of his luxury car and locks eyes with a woman from his past, a woman soaked, desperate, and flanked by 2 identical children who looked just like him. Nicholas Hawthorne had everything: youth, ambition, and more money than he could spend in a lifetime. At 33, he was one of New York's most powerful tech magnates, with skyscrapers bearing his name and a face that graced the covers of business magazines. But all the power and wealth in the world couldn't prepare him for what he was about to witness on that freezing November night. The city streets shimmered under the relentless downpour as he rolled up to an intersection near the edge of Brooklyn, late for a charity gala he didn't care about. His driver slowed at a red light. Nicholas glanced out the tinted window and froze. There, on the sidewalk across the street, was a woman huddled beneath a tattered umbrella. Her clothes were soaked, her hands trembling. She held a cardboard sign, "Please help. 2 hungry kids. No place to go." Beside her stood 2 small children, twins, no older than 9. Barely shielded from the cold, they clung to each other, shivering, their thin jackets soaked through. But it wasn't just their presence that shocked him, it was their faces. The same deep-set hazel eyes. The same dark waves of hair. The same half-smile he saw in the mirror every morning. Nicholas's heart stopped. It couldn't be. But it was. He threw the door open and stepped into the rain, ignoring his driver's protests. He crossed the street in wide strides, his designer shoes splashing through puddles. The woman didn't look up at first, too focused on shielding the kids from the cold. But as he drew closer, her eyes met his. And for a split second, time folded in on itself. "Elena?" Her breath caught in her throat. 10 years had passed, but his voice was unmistakable. She stared at him, stunned, drenched, and speechless. Then, her lips trembled, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Pain. Memories. Regret. Nicholas swallowed hard, staring down at the 2 boys beside her. "Are they?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she gently placed a protective arm around them, drawing them close. "They're mine," she said softly. His heart raced. "And mine." Elena's silence was the only confirmation he needed. 10 years ago, Nicholas and Elena had shared a night of passion in Chicago. He was a rising entrepreneur, in town for a conference, and she was a struggling waitress working double shifts to care for her ailing mother. They met in a quiet bar on a snowy night, 2 strangers who found solace in each other's loneliness. That night was electric, but they never exchanged numbers. Nicholas had left the next morning for Europe, and Elena never knew how to reach him. She had discovered she was pregnant 2 weeks later. She tried to track him down. She called his old office number, wrote emails to the company he mentioned, but by the time she found out his real identity, he was already in headlines, unreachable, and surrounded by power and walls. With no money and nowhere to turn, she stayed in Chicago, gave birth to twins, and worked tirelessly to keep them fed. But life was cruel. Her mother passed away, jobs dried up, and rent skyrocketed. 2 weeks ago, her landlord evicted them. Since then, Elena and her sons had been living in shelters, begging when necessary, surviving on next to nothing. Nicholas stood there, drenched and breathless. "Why didn't you find me?" "I tried," she whispered, tears blending with the rain. "But you were already in another world." He looked at the twins again, his eyes burning with emotion. "Come with me. Now. Please." She hesitated, uncertainty dancing in her eyes. "I don't want charity, Nicholas. I don't want your guilt." "It's not guilt," he said firmly. "It's responsibility. And maybe, fate." That night, Nicholas took them to his penthouse, not out of pity, but out of a rising storm of realization. Seeing the boys asleep in warm beds for the first time, Hearing Elena's exhausted sobs of relief in the guest room, he knew something had shifted inside him forever. The following weeks brought waves of emotion and adjustment. Nicholas introduced the boys, Ethan and Aiden, to a world they never knew, a world of safety, comfort, and opportunities. At first, they were scared, uncertain, clinging to Elena. But Nicholas didn't push. Instead, he showed up every day. Took them to school. Helped with homework. Played soccer in the yard. Elena remained guarded. She had built walls over the years, walls forged from betrayal, disappointment, and loneliness. But every time Nicholas sat with her during breakfast, listened without judgment, or laughed with the boys like a real father, a brick in that wall crumbled. One evening, as the city skyline glowed gold in the setting sun, Elena sat beside him on the rooftop garden. The boys were downstairs, playing video games in a room larger than the apartment they once shared. Nicholas offered her a cup of tea and asked, "What did you dream of, back then? Before everything?" She smiled sadly. "I wanted to be a writer. But dreams don't feed kids." "Then let's start now," he said. "It's never too late." A silence settled between them. Not awkward, but full of unspoken healing. The challenges didn't vanish overnight. The boys had nightmares from the streets. Elena struggled to trust a man who once disappeared without a trace. And Nicholas had to unlearn years of arrogance, learning instead how to be vulnerable, how to be a father, how to earn back a woman's trust. One that life had taught to expect nothing. But the truth was undeniable, their one night had created a bond far greater than either could imagine. And now, 10 years later, fate had offered them a second chance. One rainy evening, nearly a year after that fateful reunion, Elena stood on the same sidewalk where Nicholas had first seen her again. Only this time, she wasn't begging. She held the ribbon-cutting scissors for a brand new women's shelter, funded by Nicholas, designed by Elena, and named after her mother. Beside her stood Ethan and Aiden, smiling and proud. Nicholas stood on her other side, holding her hand, his grip firm and full of warmth. The crowd applauded as she cut the ribbon, but her eyes stayed on him. "You didn't just save us," she whispered. "You gave us back a future." "And you," he replied, "gave me a purpose I never knew I needed." Their story, born from one night of chance, had traveled a decade of silence, hardship, and heartbreak. But in the end, it proved a truth so many forget: life doesn't always follow a script. Sometimes, the most broken roads lead to the most beautiful destinations. As the clouds parted and sunlight spilled across the streets, Elena and Nicholas walked forward, together, a family forged not by perfect timing, but by unbreakable love, resilience, and the courage to begin again.